Welcome, everybody, to Crown and Country, Episode 2. Should be a pretty interesting show. Lots of stuff going on. Excited to be back with you this evening. I'm pretty sure it's evening. I'm in a pretty good mood. I just went 74 and 4 on Battlefield 6. I'm really rocking with one of the AKs they got on that game, which is good. So I'm gonna try to get through this because I want to get back to that. But lots of things we got to talk about. A couple of updates. Make sure you subscribe to the show. You follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. Please do that. We have pretty good analytics for this first go around. I thought it went well. Mr. Producer says he's sorry that the audio is only coming out of the left ear on episode 1. We're pretty sure we fixed that. But you got to give him kind of a break because he's sitting on my floor drinking Heinekens while we film these episodes. That's just how Mr. Producer is. Pray for him. Not really. He's just a bro. All good things. Lots of things in the news this week. We're going to get into one thing. We are going to talk about. I'm really struggling with all this sanctimonious outrage and all this just ridiculousness that's going on within the conservative movement. Nobody can stay on mission. I know I kind of talked about that a little bit last week, but I really want to dive into that because we got to stay on mission. Our country's in an existential crisis. And then we're also going to talk about some of the stuff Vivek Ramaswamy said last night at a Turning Point USA event. A lot of debate around the topic. I know a lot of people had choice words like Benny Johnson and some others, and I kind of want to comment on it too. I'll even read stuff that was set off my iPad. It's going to be like a real news thing. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Got a little bit of feedback about episode 1. Nobody really addressed my arguments. Hey, that's okay. I didn't really get anything negative. There were some questions on what I meant by America being an empire, which I expected that to happen every time I mention that when I do anything political. People are all like, well, we're a republic. And I'm like, yeah. Rome was an empire before it had an emperor. The Roman Republic was imperial in nature. A lot of European nations are imperial in nature, and they don't necessarily have an emperor. We have an empire. I think that's just kind of the character of our nation. But we have an empire that has a government that's republican in character. We have a republic. And so both those things can be true at once. And I don't know, I just don't think civics has really taught us very well about the dynamics of government and its character and nature and how it goes about doing things around the world and even in our own country. I mean, we're a huge country. We're kind of imperial in nature. New York looks a lot different than Arizona, and that's because we're an empire and we've been expanding throughout our whole history. That was really probably the biggest thing that we got, I think, Mr. Producer. So that's good. I'm glad. I think people received some of it when we were talking about like what is an American, and we'll kind of talk about that further with Vivek Ramaswamy's comments. Talk about that a little more. The only other thing that people had to remind me of, on a few weeks ago, I went on the Charlie Kirk show. And everybody said it was great. They thought it was awesome. It was cool. Wyoming boy on the Charlie Kirk show. It's cool to be there. Cool to meet everybody there. But everybody has to talk about my fat face. I know I have a fat face. I get to look at my fat face every day. And I'm okay with my fat face. Actually, that's not true. I'm totally lying. I've worked out 4 times, since episode 1 to try to get rid of this fat face. At the beginning of the year, everybody said that this was the year of ascension. And, because all that looks maxing stuff was going on, I said, I ain't doing that. I'm going to fat max. I'm going to be countercultural. All this looks maxing, everything's about vanity. And I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing. I mean, I would agree that it's probably good for nobody to be an obesitoid. We should not have that. It's not good for, a big part of your country to be just huge. And I don't want to be huge. I used to actually be pretty chiseled back in the day. I am not so much anymore. College has made me very soft. I used to not have all this fat. It's just, I don't know. I guess that's what happens. I can't cook, so I eat like the Walmart Montreal chimichangas and Red Baron pizzas and canned ravioli almost every single day. That's pretty much my diet. I drink coffee, White Monster, Mountain Dew. That's my diet. And I look pretty good for my diet. But I know I have a fat face. We're working on it. We're going to get rid of it. I know I have to be more pleasant to the camera because people care about that. I would go to the gym more often. When I first got to college, I went to the gym pretty regularly, mostly just to hang out with my roommate and just chat with folks because I like chatting a lot more than I do working out. Working out sucks. It hurts. And there's a difference between the hurting and working out and then hurting because you're like working. Because when you're working, you're accomplishing something and you get to see the fruits of your labor. Working out, you don't see results for like at least a month, if that. And it's just no fun. You go to these gyms, nobody's wearing clothes, and so you feel uncomfortable because nobody's wearing clothes. You can see everything, and it's horrible. We got to get rid of that. And you're like, I'll be doing curls, and I have like these skinny little arms, and I'll be standing by a guy whose arms are as wide as my waist. And, he's looking at himself in the mirror, and I'm just like this skinny little guy listening to a political podcast, and I have a dumb political hat on. My gym hat it's a Reagan hat. I know I talked a lot of crap about Reagan last episode, but it says "Shut up, hippie." And I think it's really funny. But yeah, I don't like the gym. There's so much vanity, and everybody's always showing off, and I'm just not really like that. I don't like that. I'm not show offy in that way, I guess. I did go on like a 3 mile walk yesterday with a friend. That's probably the farthest I've walked, and I don't know how long. It was a long walk though. My calves are killing me. I even wore my tennis shoes. And it was hot, and I was all sweaty, and it was just horrible. I didn't like it, but we gotta fix the physique because I guess it is the year of ascension, and we got to do that. My biggest excuse for the longest time was that my genetic makeup just makes me who I am, and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm Anglo-Saxon. It's not my fault I got a chubby little face. When you go to England, there's no big statues of like these nude British dudes that they made statues out of because Anglo-Saxons were just really not known for our physiques. We're known for our making of the law, for our forms of government, our institutions, our ability to empire. We're the best at it. Our trade, mercantilism. You don't see that like in Greek or in Rome where you see like these. And who knows if those people were actually as chiseled as the statues make them out to be. But I know they definitely would make a statue like that. Anglo-Saxon people, we have these skinny little arms, skinny little legs, and nice chubby little bellies. And I got those. And so that's kind of been my excuse, but we gotta fix it, and I'll fix it. I promise. I worked out like 4 times in the last couple of weeks, so we're getting there. And I know we're in the age of Maha, and like I appreciate Maha. I probably shouldn't have like red dye. I don't appreciate how people are more freaking out about like all these dyes being in like Fruit Loops than our country being invaded. We're in an existential crisis where half the country thinks, conservatives are the most evil thing since, the tyrants of the 20th century. We'll get into that a little bit. I appreciate Maha. We should be healthy. We should eat good. We should do those things. We should work out. We should be active. We should be fit. I think that's part of being a good citizen is to be fit. So I'm working on it. And it's really hard. Mr. Producer has been taking me to his gym because there's less people there, and I don't have to, be embarrassed by these fit people. Everybody is so fit. I don't know. And I don't know. My favorite people in the world are not necessarily fit people because they're just happy. They're A-okay. They're just hanging out. And I'm kind of have that mentality. Just roll with the flow. I'm going to do whatever I want in the moment. That's just who I am. And having to like put the gym on my schedule every day, it's just a hassle. Anyway, I guess we'll kind of get into what we got to talk about. Lots of things to talk about. First thing on my list, all this sanctimonious garbage. Something that I've picked up on over the last year and a half about the conservative movement, and it's particularly in the last 7 months since the assassination of Charlie, is that we're kind of going into these sectarian camps where, I don't know why we're doing that. We shouldn't do that. We should continue to dialogue and debate, at least on our side. And I'll get to why that's not necessarily true, why we can dialogue with the other side at times. But whenever anything happens, there's a part of our movement that is just constantly outraged. It's just ridiculous. There's all this sanctimonious outrage. Oh, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do that. And there's two different camps in this sanctimonious crowd. It's just like when Donald Trump does something. We've known who Donald Trump is since 2015. This is the guy that got on stage with that pastor in 2015. Go YouTube it. And the pastor asked him, Mr. Trump, do you ever feel the need to repent? And Trump essentially says, no, not necessarily. I'll just do better tomorrow. I'll just do good things. And he's been saying the same thing for 10 years. So when Trump does anything like make a silly AI image like everybody freaked out about it. And like, I'm not necessarily saying that's a good thing. And he even said that it wasn't a good thing when he was confronted by the press. And, I kind of have the tendency to believe him that he didn't know what it was. I'm sure some staffer showed him an image that, because he didn't even make it. It wasn't even his team make it. Somebody else made that image. And he was like, I didn't know. I thought I was a doctor. And knowing him, he probably did think that because he's Trump. That's just who he is. And I don't know if you ever met any of these boomers that do anything with AI. Half the time they think the AI videos are real. And all they post on their political pages now is just these AI memes. And Trump has been posting these AI things outrageously. And a lot of them I think are funny. I thought that when he was the one he posted on the airplane with the cats and dogs with the Haitian incident in Ohio, that was funny. We all thought that was fine. It was definitely outrageous, but it was awesome and it was funny. Or when he made himself the Pope. As I know probably my Catholic friends don't like that very much, but it was kind of funny. It's Donald Trump. That's what makes Donald Trump who he is. He's outrageous. He's a populist. So everybody freaking out about that. And you should not mock and blaspheme the Lord Jesus Christ. The name of the show is Crown and Country. Christ is King. He is our Lord. He is the sovereign Lord of all, and he shall not be mocked. And and I think the president knows that. And he definitely knows that his base knows that. And I think that there is an extent to where we should be upset about that. We should try to hold people accountable when they go wrong. But hold that but. We're going to go into this other camp of the sanctimonious crowd. Then you have this sanctimonious crowd. And these people have very good hearts. I think they have very, very good hearts. The other crowd does too. And these are these people all the time. Anytime anybody does anything wrong to them, like a leftist does something wrong to them, they forgive immediately. We've seen this in Wyoming a lot recently in our Wyoming politics, where there's just forgiveness, just the sanctimony. And there is a place for forgiveness. But I'll just say this: Jesus does not forgive unrepentant people. He does not do that. He forgives people that seek forgiveness, that repent of their sins, that turn from their ways. And all too often I see these conservatives, they'll just, bend over and forgive these people that wrong them and are unrepentant about it. They don't love Jesus. They don't love them. They don't love the country. They don't love their localities. They're just there to uphold their various ideologies, their worldviews. And so I see these people, they forgive all the time. And then, 10 days later, that same person will wrong them again. And it's just like, I kind of got into a spat with some people on Facebook, I don't know how long ago it was. But I was like, these leftists, a lot of them, they would hang you with the lifeline you throw them to save them. And it is not the duty of the Christian just to forgive everybody in a blanket fashion. Brothers and sisters in Christ, you should absolutely forgive them. Those are the people you should be forgiving. Those should be the people you're uplifting. And for the non-repentant, you should be a witness to them. You should show that you will do good by them, no matter what. That you are a good person. That you're not going to treat them how they treat you. Treat your neighbor. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. But that doesn't mean you got to forgive them. And see this all the time. Instead of being politically savvy and using the law and protecting your people's interests, these people just forgive. You can't do that. You cannot do that, especially in the state that we're in as conservatives. So you got all the sanctimonious stuff going on. We got to stop that, conservatives. And this is why. And then there's this other crowd of right-wingers, I guess you'd call them, they're very, very bad, or at least they're very bad for the movement right now. But first I want to talk about the left. Is that I think people, actually no, I'll talk about that side first, is like this Candace Owens crowd. I don't even know where to start with these guys. I know some, and I love them to death. But what they are doing to our country and to our movement is not good. There are two things that kind of live in my head rent-free every single day. And that is one, when Trump was almost killed in Butler, Pennsylvania. I'll never forget that day. It was a shock. I was at my uncle's farm, and I was not really helping. I was more like watching. A couple of my uncles work on this AC system on this big tractor, and my grandma runs out of the house and showed me this I couldn't believe she had Telegram, so I was a little shocked by that. But showed me this video of Trump getting shot, and the video ended where Trump just hit the ground after, he touched his ear, and I thought Trump was dead, and it shook me to the core. And I kind of, to be honest, I teared up a little bit. My grandma said he got up, he's okay. And so I'll never forget that somebody would do that. And then even bigger, something that, it's like the first thing I think about every day. And I'll never forget the day when Charlie was taken from us. I was actually at the library, or in the parking lot of the library at my university. I was actually waiting for a friend to go to the library with me. And I get a message from another friend that Charlie was shot. I didn't believe it at first. And then I opened up Twitter, and the first thing I see was that video, that horrific video. And I just couldn't believe it. And then we found out who did it. And he was just like this little leftist kid, very troubled individual. There's, as we know, his personal life's pretty nasty, transgender boyfriend or whatever. And then and then I wasn't surprised that somebody would do that. If you spend any time on these college campuses, you know how crazy some of these folks are on campus. And this Candace crowd, they obfuscate from that. They said it was France and Egypt and Israel and whoever, people in our own government that were behind the assassination. Just no evidence, no evidence. They'd rather spend their time, instead of being politically active and pressuring the government to do things to check some of these extremist groups that want people like us dead, for the people who, who have spent their entire political careers advocating for things like limited government, free markets, constitutionalism, love of the founding fathers, love of the Declaration of Independence, all these things we conservatives stand for principally. It's true, good, and beautiful. We love Jesus. We love the church. We love our faith. Instead of pushing government towards that direction to embrace those things and to check some of these elements in our country that want just good, hardworking Americans dead for their beliefs, they're going to obfuscate and say, it is some conspiracy. And I don't know why it's just crazy that they find it so hard that a radical left-wing extremist like this kid would do something to Charlie Kirk and to other conservatives. If you don't, you should hit up your local TPUSA chapter and hang out with them a week on their college campus and see what they have to go through. There are statistics out there that say that 25% of leftists between the ages of 18 and 30 believe that violence is okay in furthering political ends. 25%. That's millions and millions of people in this country that think that's okay. How many people did we see celebrate, Charlie's death all over the country? Publicly, we're excited about it. 2 days after the assassination on my college campus, someone had the audacity to say in our college newspaper that it is a duty to shoot people like Charlie Kirk. It's a duty to shoot conservatives. Proudly say that. And then what we saw also all over the country are these people defending those people, saying, I thought conservatives stood for free speech. I don't know when I can't name a conservative in the public world that would say it's okay to use violence to achieve political ends. None. Absolutely none. And so you see the media, you see people in government, these who are more leftist types, they defend these people. And we saw that in Wyoming, in my home state, in Wyoming of all places, who were defending these people. And I was sitting in a room with university administrators talking about these incidents going on campus. And these administrators had the audacity to express concern for the well-being of these people that celebrated our death, that called for people like me to be shot on campus. We're expressing concern for them, for their mental health, providing university resources to them, those people. And even with all that going on all around us, there is the sect of people who just need the conspiracy. And I get it. We've been lied to a long, long time. We were lied about COVID. We were lied about the forever wars in the Middle East. We were lied about immigration. We were lied about wages. We were lied about housing. We were lied about everything. I'm Gen Z. I know all too well. Everything that was promised to us in the American dream largely isn't true. Only 4% of us will ever own a home. I get it. But to find it hard to believe for these people that can't believe that an extremist on the left would not do something like that baffles me. And so conservatives need to stay on mission. And I think that once this trial goes underway, some of that crowd that thinks it was like Egypt that killed Charlie Kirk, or like some Romanian, conspiracy killed Charlie Kirk, I think that crowd will get smaller. And we're already saying that. I mean, her viewership's going way down, a lot of those people. And I get it. There are a lot of people who are not very satisfied with the current administration. I'm with you in a lot of those ways when it comes to foreign wars, with deportations, and a lot of things. But doing what you're doing is not probably the right way to go about it. We won the election because of a great coalition. And I agree. I do not like everybody in the coalition, but we did win because of that. And if you want a chance of getting anything done, there are two things you have to do. One, you got to exercise your vote and not promise your vote to any politician. Never do that. Politicians don't care what you have to say after you have promised that you will vote for them. Never ever do that. You got to push the envelope on your own side. And that doesn't mean going about it the way a lot of people are going about it right now. You're not helping anybody. Think about how much Charlie Kirk pushed the envelope in this movement during his time on Earth with us. I mean, Turning Point USA started out as like a libertarian group. It was live and let live. That was kind of our motto. And we developed into a very explicit Christian conservative organization. We were promoting what is true, good, and beautiful. Think about how much he pushed the movement. Think about where the conservative movement was just 10 years ago. We couldn't talk about immigration. It would have been unfathomable to questioning a foreign war. It would have been unfathomable to talk about a lot of the things that we talk about now. Think about how far the movement has gone in the last 10 years. And I know people, and there are certain people on the right that they push the envelope so hard in creating, dissidents to further push the envelope, which is good. There is an effective way to do that. But like Candace Owens is not doing that. She's just schizoing. It's a soap opera. Every episode is a soap opera, and that's why like all these Gen X moms really vibe with it. That's all it is. It's a Gen X opera or a soap opera. It's just a drama fest. The clicking of the nails and the gossiping on camera. It's crazy. It's not real political commentary. It's not real political strategy. And so that's not the right way to push the envelope. You push the envelope by having that real dialogue within your own movement, getting in positions in the government, in the institutions, advocating for yourself, and you can't disunify based off of these things. You have to continue to convince people. I mean, look, like Benny Johnson, for example. 10 years ago, Benny Johnson would not be saying the same things he is saying now. I would not be saying the things I was saying now. Charlie Kirk wouldn't have been saying the things he was saying 10 years ago. We have all developed, and that's because we are pushing the envelope effectively on our own side, making good arguments, making better arguments for our policy positions, not by blowing up the movement. And granted, there are parts of the movement that are not good. Some are very, very liberal, and some of them probably don't even belong in the movement. I will give you that. But if you want to win a presidential election, you got to keep the coalition. And if you want to be able to pressure people in government, you have to keep the coalition. And you have to be able to say, and you have to be able to be willing to withhold your vote, to pressure politicians to do what you want, and to get them to promise what you want during these election cycles. That's what you got to do. And it's just not effective right now. And I want to be clear that I'm not talking about everybody who is left of center is like this. There are lots of good people there are lots of people on the left who are good people who are willing to dialogue with us. I experienced this when I table on my college campus. There are routine people that come up. They just want to hear what I got to say on a certain issue, and I enjoy hearing what they have to say, and it's real dialogue, and we help each other grow. There is that element, but there is also an element where there is no room for political compromise. They literally celebrate our suffering and death. Their political religion calls for the overthrowing of everything in our country. That is leftism. Everywhere they go, that is what they do. There is an element like that, and we have to be aware of that, and we have to be able to protect our country, our families, our churches. And so dialogue, good, but like that group, there's probably no room for dialogue. You aren't going to change their mind. No matter how hard we try, there is just a group where their mind is not going to be changed. And that is a sad thing. We need to pray for their souls. If there's one thing that we can do, is bring the gospel, is deliver the gospel, and pray that the Holy Spirit intervenes in their hearts, because our logic, our systematic logic, our policy isn't going to change their minds. Only the Holy Spirit can. And so there's no need for the sanctimonious garbage, and there's no need to blow up the movement. And I agree, some parts of the movement are not good. But right now we have an administration who has done a lot of good things, who could do things better. And the best way to do that is not to just be an outrageous, I don't even know what to call it. I can't think of the word right now. Just spurging out all the time. Crashing out is only effective in certain situations. We need to be able to communicate. We need to be able to pressure. We need to real politic. I think people have really forgotten what real politicking means. And it is just having those conversations. But anyway, I'll move on from that. Things to think about mostly. It really bothers me. And I don't know. I don't understand where some conservative heads are at, because Charlie Kirk was shot, guys, and we all saw that video. Yeah, it makes me sick to my stomach. I don't know. Anybody just can't be angry, because that's just all I've been for the last 7 months, is angry that our country has gotten to a place where someone like Charlie Kirk, who is supportive of so many people, students like me, giving us a platform to explore ideas, to fight for our state, to fight for Jesus, um, that someone would like Charlie would be shot for exercising his right of free speech, to just want to talk to people and talk about policy and ideas, that somebody would shoot him because of that. And then further, to see people that were okay with that. That people think it's literally a duty to kill us. These people, a lot of them think that we are literally in the Third Reich incarnate. They think that. Us who believe in like a limited government, like the Bill of Rights, us, they literally think we're like that. They think it's just crazy what they think. And we're nothing like that. We know history better than they do. Our grandfathers stormed the beaches of Normandy to free those people from those evils. Those things are anti-American, which is why we don't like leftism. It's anti-American. We don't like anything that is anti-American. It is wrong. It's not good for our country. It's not good for our people. And most of it, if not all of it, is, excuse me, I'm sorry, is evil. And we're just not like that. But they literally think that. These people think that. I don't know how often I come across campus and people are being like, you're denying my right to live. And I'm just like, what? Or you're denying my right, or you're denying my existence. When we bring speakers to campus, they say that all the time. You're denying my existence. We're not denying your existence. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? We hosted a speaker a little over a month and a half ago, and this kid comes up and he basically just says all white people gotta go. These people, we have professors on these college campuses who say all white people just need to die. White people are inherently evil. This color of their skin makes them evil. We're not like that. We don't think that about anybody. We think some cultures are better than others, which I think is obvious. I think American culture is better than like Taliban culture. I think liberty is a lot better than, the totalitarianism of the Chinese. I think that's better. These people think that we are these things, and a lot of them, no matter how hard we try to talk to them, they will never come around. Some of them do by the grace of God, solely by the grace of God. None of our arguments. And so our solution is you got to real politic, you got to run for office, you got to get in government and stay strong in government. None of that sanctimonious catering, none of that. And I'll just say, as Gen Z guys, you people do not understand how right wing and how Christian we are becoming. It's crazy to see like these college Turning Point USA chapter, these young men in these chapters. They're coming for your jobs. When they're of age and they are able to run for office, they're coming for your jobs. All you Republicans who have done nothing to leave the country better off for your children than when you got it. Because none of you have done anything. Which is why we cannot just be outrageous and just tear apart the movement. So you got to keep these Gen Z guys in there too. So they're sick of that. I think you guys need to be aware of that. You do nothing, Republicans. And the Christless conservatism that has ruled conservatism for the last 60 years, that's going away. It is now it's a different movement, and it's way cooler. It's way more Christ-focused. It's way more reactionary, in that we want to bring back things that do not exist anymore. We want to bring back the historic institutions that made this country great. We want to bring back good law, and none of this like post-World War II liberalism that calls itself conservatism. We don't think Ronald Reagan and William F. Buckley is very cool. We don't think those guys are cool. We think Russell Kirk's like way cooler. That's an interesting thing, because I really like Russell Kirk. His romanticism. It's interesting. A lot of these Catholics after the war, they like get into political theory and stuff, and they're like romanticizing after like basically Protestant political theory. And that's basically Russell Kirk. It's just kind of the sad thing is that I really like the ideas. I don't know how effective it is. And the reason I say that is because, his side ultimately lost to the neoconservatives, the neoliberals, the conservatives of the last half century. And I think those are good ideas. But we want to bring back George Washington. You know, we think George Washington's cool. Like, he's our Cincinnatus. He's cool. The founding fathers are cool. We want their idea of government. We want an American nation for Americans only, not for the world. We don't believe everybody can become. I'm kind of getting into my second argument here, or second topic of the day. Maybe we'll just get into that. But just know, Gen Z guys are coming, and we're learning. We're embracing the family. We're embracing the church. We're trying to embrace the family. It's rough out there. It's very rough out there. We'll have an episode about that. Feminism. It's so bad. So many conservative. I'm really going around rabbit trails, but so many conservative women are just crypto feminists. Anyway, we'll kind of talk about. So last night, I think it was last night. Mr. Producer, was it last night with Vivek? Yeah, Vivek spoke last night. And, you know, he said his usual stuff. You know, he's caused controversies here now and again. I remember in like Christmas time, 2024, he sparked a big old controversy over H-1B visas. Very controversial. There was like kind of like a short MAGA civil war. That's what they called it. He did not that long ago, I think, over the same topic. And he sparked controversy last night with some of the comments he said. And let me bring it up. I'll read one thing that he said. And it's, you know, it's not surprising. You know, he's a civic nationalist. So what that means, like, you know, the ideals of our nation are what make you an American, basically. Like believing in certain things and other things you do. But he basically said this: you can travel to Italy, or this is at least what he wrote on his Twitter. You can travel to Italy, but you'll never be an Italian. You can travel to France, but you'll never be a Frenchman. You can live in Germany, but you'll never be a German. You can pack your bags and live the rest of your life in China or Japan, but you'll never be Chinese or Japanese. Yet you can come from any one of those countries to the United States of America, and you can still be an American. As long as you work hard, you play by the rules, you make your contributions, wait your turn, pledge allegiance to the flag, and obtain your citizenship. And this sparked a lot of debate. And it's kind of been an ongoing debate for about 5 years or so about what is an American. And I, like Benny Johnson, I don't know why I keep mentioning him. It was great to see him say that. That was like so encouraging. And I'm glad that a lot of people are coming around to kind of how I view this. That is not what makes you an American. You just got to work hard. You just got to pay your taxes. You got to be a net benefit to the GDP. You got to wait your turn. You got to pledge allegiance. That part does help you become an American by pledging allegiance. If you come here, you should give up all your former political loyalties. I think that is a given. But I think these things are more like a given when you move to a country. If I moved to any other country, it'd probably be a good thing for me to be, you know, hardworking. I should contribute to the community, broadly speaking. Those are things that you should just be doing. So I think that's silly. So what truly makes you an American? I got to pull up something here. Go to my Safari. If those are the things that make you an American, then it really doesn't mean anything to be an American. And the reason I say this is because why is our country the way it is? Nobody ever asked that question. Why is it that our Constitution, our ideals, the ideals of 76, why did those things work here in America? How many other countries in the world have basically the exact same Constitution, but those countries look nothing like our country? Why is it that our country worked? Why did our institutions work? Why do we have liberty like no other people on earth have ever had? Why do we have the things? Why do we have prosperity? Why do we have security? And I think the answer is because of the people that made this country. They came from a particular background. They inherited certain traditions and laws and conventions and customs that made those things possible. They had certain habits that made those things possible. And I want to read something that John Jay, he's one of my favorite founding fathers, not my favorite. There's another John that's my favorite, John Adams. But he wrote this in Federalist 2. And I think that this is a very good thing to kind of get to the idea of what an American is. So I'm sorry for the old English, but I think it's very beautiful the way he wrote this. It has often given me pleasure to observe that independent America was not composed of detached and distant territories, but that one connected, fertile, wide-spreading country was the portion of our western sons of liberty. Providence has, in a particular manner, blessed it with a variety of soils and productions, and watered it with innumerable streams for the delight and accommodation of its inhabitants. A succession, sorry, I wet my mouth. A succession of navigable waters forms a kind of chain round its borders, as if to bind it together, while the most noble rivers in the world, running at convenient distances, present them with highways for the easy communication of friendly aids and the mutual transportation of exchange of their various commodities. So some of you are probably wondering, what does the geography of these United States have to do with what it means to be an American? Well, there is a particular reason why John Jay is saying that, and that's because the people that were here, they were connected to the land. The founding generation was connected to the land. Their habits and customs came about because of their environmental conditions. People don't really understand that. Like a lot of the reason we are the way we are is because of our environment. Maybe that's more forgiven and people just don't think about that much, but I think about that a lot. But those people back then were connected to the land. Is that was part of why they were American. Let me continue. With equal pleasure, I have often taken notice that Providence has been pleased to give this one connected country to one united people, a people descended from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, professing the same religion, attached to the same principles of government, very similar in their manners and customs, and who, by their joint counsels, arms, and efforts, fighting side by side throughout a long and bloody war, have established general liberty and independence. And so there are various things that made this country successful, as he said. Our country came from England. The people that founded this country, they had the common law. They had various institutions that were modeled after England's. We had these various ways of doing things that came from English culture. And I'm not saying, let me preface this over so nobody accuses me of whatever. You do not have to be like a white Anglo-Saxon to be an American. I will give Vivek Ramaswamy that. But that does not mean you can just be anything in the world and be an American. You do have to speak English. That is our country. That is the way we communicate. That is what binds our communities together. You want to know what? The easiest way to tear apart a community if nobody can understand each other. English is this country's language. And as we could see, as we've seen, we see this in Wyoming a lot, like on I-80 with these truck drivers who can't speak English. It's not good. It's just not practical. We come from a shared religion, Christianity, particularly Western Christianity. And that's just the way it is. I know people don't like that. It's very inconvenient. But the reason we are the way we are is because of prominently, Western Protestantism. I guess there's only one kind. I guess all Protestantism is kind of Western. It's not really anywhere else in the world. But it's where we get our hardworking nature. It's why capitalism kind of worked in America, is because of the Protestant work ethic. The reason we're so industrious is probably because of Protestantism. And so we shared that. We had that. There's a reason why the country became the way it is, and it's because of who those people were, what their religion, the way they went about things, and their shared habits and their manners. And people don't really think that's a big deal, but that is a big deal. Whenever, what people hate, what people hate about Americans when Americans go to other countries, is that we just assert our Americanness over them. We don't participate in their habits and customs. We're just kind of loud and rowdy. We assert ourselves over them. They don't like it. They don't like that. That's because of who we are as a people. We're very individualistic to a fault at times, definitely. But we are the way we are, and that's a good thing. And so people like to say, well, America is just like this multicultural, pluralist society. And I think sadly, that is true. That is what we are, but that's to our detriment. How can we be one united people if there are not certain things we share? And if, like Vivek says, that we share hard work, participating in this economic opportunity zone, and that really bothers me, that so many people think America is just this economic opportunity zone. I know I talked about that a lot last episode. But it's not. It's our home. It's our home. And it was successful because of the values and ideals that people that came before us espoused. And so I disagree with Vivek that we cannot unite behind the ideals of 76, like he says, and that's what makes you an American. because most of the world does not. And you can't just come here and just surrender all those things. No, it takes time. It takes time to inherit, these things that make you an American, these ways of going about things that make you an American. You can't just come here and be like, yeah, get your card and, I'm an American now. Get your citizenship card and go, I'm an American now. And I'll put it on a more local level. Think about how different one town is from another. It is a culture shock for like a kid to move from one town to another, because all that kid has known is the ways of doing things in that town. It's a culture shock for a kid to move from one place to another because it's different. It is so different. Even town to town's different. And we have this idea in our heads that anybody from anywhere in the world can come here and just be an American. That is not true. There isn't a reason assimilation is enforced everywhere in the world but in our country. It's because countries know, because most people know around the world, that what makes their nation, their people beautiful is who they are to the bone. And Americans, we have forgot that. You cannot keep this country if we do not keep the things that made America what it is. If those things are not ingrained into the hearts and minds of every single person in this country, it is impossible. You cannot keep the country if you do that. And I understand why Vivek is saying those things. And, I think it's a hard thing for him to reconcile. And I think it's a hard thing for a lot of people to reconcile, because we have promoted, this neoliberalism, basically. We have done away with national identity. I think it's very offensive to God. I think that God ordered the world the way he did for a reason, because one, he loves, like I said last episode, he loves diversity. He loves global diversity. He did that for a reason. He did it for our own safety, for our own good. That way, our sins could be checked by the various civil magistrates in these countries. It's just easier to do it that way. So I think people really need to think about that a lot harder. And there are just certain things that you have to embrace that don't come instantaneously. You can't just come here and instantaneously espouse the things that make Americans American. It's just impossible. And maybe that does suck, because there are a lot of people that want to come here. But that's the way it is. If we want America to continue to be a place that people want to come to, we have to keep the things that made it awesome. And our country is awesome. There's no better country than ours. And, a lot of Christians really don't like when we say that our country is better, but it just kind of is. And there's nothing wrong with the country being better. We have freedom of religion here. I think most pastors or most Christians would say that's a good thing. We can freely worship in our churches. I think our country is just better in some ways than other countries. And I think there are things that are better in other countries than ours. I think other countries know how to promote order better than ours. We definitely. But I think the reason we don't have order in our country is because we forgot who we are. You can't have a civil government that enforces social order if there's no shared identity among the citizenry. It's just impossible. John Calvin talked a lot about that in his commentaries in Isaiah, if you want to look into that. I think that's really all I got today. Mr. Producer, how long have we been going? I say that's good enough. I think that's good enough. I hope you enjoyed this show. Please subscribe on YouTube. Give us a follow. Share it with your friends. Think about these things. We got to think about these things. If you're a conservative and you're kind of struggling in the movement right now, I get it. We all are. The whole movement is struggling. But we have to figure out efficient ways to push the envelope on the issues that matter. We have to hold political officials accountable. We have to hold elected officials accountable. We can't just disavow and deplatform everybody that we disagree with. We have to have the hard talks. And we have to hold ourselves accountable too. I know them better than anybody. Got to hold ourselves accountable. We have to love ourselves. We have to love our people. We have to love the things that made our country great. We have to be willing to protect those things. And one thing I really want to talk about, because I was talking about these sanctimonious people. I think a lot of them are sanctimonious for reasons that I don't quite understand. But you have to understand that part of being Christian is suffering for the sake of Christ. And also suffering for the sake of those that hate us. And so that doesn't mean you go and forgive them. That means you go and do what is right. You stand strong. You hold the line. You stay on mission for their own good too. So these people that hate us, it is our calling to love them. It is our calling to love them. But that means we love them by holding the line. We stand by what is true. We stand by the rule of law. We stand by principles in government. We take our own side. We take the side of Christ and his church and our own people for their own good too. If we believe that Christianity or conservatism, whatever that may be, hopefully it's not Christless conservatism, we hold the line on those things for their own good too. If we think our ideas are better than theirs, and they are better. Wherever Christianity has gone, life has improved for people. God bless the British Empire and the American Empire. We've made the world better. The Anglosphere has made the world better. I think everybody can appreciate that. We have to love ourselves. We have to take our own side. No more of that stuff. That's pretty much all I got for you guys today. Thank you for watching, and thank you for everything. For all the support that we got with episode 1, we were pleasantly surprised. We're going to keep doing this. I'm not going to say anything cheesy now. Have a good rest of your evening.